Thank you for watching this short video on Intuit Practice Management. This video focuses on the integration between Lacerte and QuickBooks. Right now I'm on the Admin tab within Intuit Practice Management, or I'll refer to it from here on out to as IPM. And over on the left, Client Manager. So once you hook up to Lacerte and QuickBooks, and there's just two little utilities that are installed on one workstation in the office. Pretty simple. If you look down at my simple system tray, I'll show you, there's the one for the IPM desktop sync that links to Lacerte, and then here's the Intuit Sync Manager we use for QuickBooks. So pretty simple to install just on one workstation in the office. Or even if you're someone who hosts with a hosting provider, or you use a terminal server or remote data services or something, as long as you can access and install on those servers, that'll be fine. Basically wherever QuickBooks and Lacerte is installed, but just on the one workstation. But you can see in the Client Manager tool, once you're synced, this client's linked to both QuickBooks and Lacerte. This one is only for QuickBooks. Most of mine are linked to both QuickBooks and Lacerte, just to show you. And it's real easy to unlink or accept a link or make them active or inactive. And the basic stuff that is really syncing, if I go to my Clients tab and Intuit Practice Management, again, here's the list, right? And if I click More on Jeffrey here, you can see that here's his name in Lacerte, here's his name in QuickBooks, right? Here are the phone numbers between Lacerte and QuickBooks. Here's the email addresses and the addresses. Here's the Lacerte client ID, which you can show just on the Clients tab there. And when you integrate with Lacerte, the information will flow down. If you change the address or information or phone number in Lacerte, it'll flow down. And then, of course, it's also pulling up from QuickBooks from the Customer Center. So if you make a change in the Customer Center to the QuickBooks customer, it'll change in the IPM. Currently, nothing goes back to Lacerte. Right, so it's really Lacerte's at the top of the hill and flowing down. And if you do make changes to the address or things like that in Lacerte, it'll come down to IPM, but you'll still, at least currently, need to make that change in QuickBooks as well. Soon you'll be able to just do it in Lacerte and flow all the way down the hill. So that's basically the integration there. Now, as far as just your key record, right? So I'm going to bring up QuickBooks. You can see that, and this information here is what will come up when I look at the customer record. Okay, and then of course in Lacerte, basically most things that are on client screen 1, also important to point out, and some of the options, right, like prepare, staff prepare, things like that, but a lot of this comes over, of course, the name and address, phone number. If you are someone who does choose the staff prepare within Lacerte, that'll flow down as well when you make a change. And also for the return, at least, that's an engagement, when you hit F4, and you make your status change, that will also change about 2 or 3 minutes later. And the QuickBooks sync is about 5 minutes. So with IPM syncing to both certain QuickBooks, you're about 5 minutes away from real time. Okay, and we'll see that there in Intuit Practice Management. Now for the QuickBooks side, there is the time and billing piece as well. It brings in your service items for your work codes. And you can create the draft invoice, for those that are doing time and billing or invoicing in QuickBooks right now, and actually finalize it and post it to QuickBooks. Right, here's where I'd post my invoice, and they come over, like this, just as your invoices with different information. Of course, you can customize the invoice in QuickBooks, and you can also customize it in Practice Management if you want to actually print it out there as well. But IPM itself is not an AR module. Right? Not without QuickBooks. In IPM, you're not going to receive a payment. You're going to do that on the QuickBooks side. And the current AR balance will then be reflected when you do the sync in IPM on the Clients tab on the billing history. Right? So that this information comes up right here in the amount paid. So the open balance comes up from QuickBooks. So if you're interested in seeing that info, you will need to connect it to QuickBooks. But we have a lot of firms that are just hooking up to Lacerte and maybe do the billing in some other program. So those are pretty much the key things. If I go back to time and billing, I did want to mention as well, if you do payroll out of QuickBooks, you can post timesheets right to the weekly timesheet and then run payroll without having to re-entering that data on the paycheck in QuickBooks. Also, you can post expenses. It'll create bills, right, for internal stuff, if you like. So that's really the integration between Lacerte and QuickBooks. For Lacerte, it's some of the options, and obviously the client screen 1, that client information will come over. And when you change it in Lacerte, even including statuses, it'll flow down and change in IPM. And then from QuickBooks, it's going to bring up your service items, address information as well for the client, current AR, open balance. And if I go to my engagement types preference, you'll see too that the statuses flow over from Lacerte, and you can link them to a particular workflow stage in Intuit Practice Management. So quite a bit of integration between both Lacerte and QuickBooks, and we'll take a look at some of the changes that I made there. And in particular, Aaron Brady's return here, I changed it to final, right? So again, the sync away from Lacerte is 2 to 3 minutes to real time. The sync to QuickBooks is 5 minutes to real time. So I hope that gives you an idea on how Intuit Practice Management syncs and integrates with Lacerte and QuickBooks. Hope that was helpful. Have a great day.